been there since July 31st. I'm going to ask and answer a couple brief questions before getting in tonight. I want to first let everyone know I have some very dedicated administrators who have joined us tonight to also answer questions. I got Mr. Randolph Sapp. He's our business official and our CSRO. He's our COVID school resource officer. Directly, I say directly, but next to Mr. Barry, we have Ms. Shannon Rabideau, our Director of Student Services, and she is the Deputy CSRO. We have Mr. Scott Storms to my right. He's our middle school principal serving students in 6 through 8. Next to him, we got Mr. Matt Barry. He is our high school principal serving grades 9 through 12. Next to Ms. Rabideau, we have Mrs. Michelle Rawson. She is the pre-K through 2nd grade principal. And directly across from me is Ms. Amy Campbell. She was our Director of Curriculum Instruction and serving this year as our intermediate grades 3 through 5 principal. So we're going to answer some questions tonight that people have had an opportunity to post. Before, we're going to give a brief overview though of what our plan is, how we developed it, and where are we going from here. If you happen to look inside of our plan on page 4 and 5 quickly, I'm going to read you a couple of questions that we posed in there and give you some brief answers on that. One of the questions was, there's so many opinions about reopening the schools and communities. How do we know what to do? This is an ever-changing process as guidance is coming down from the Department of Health, the Governor Cuomo, and the New York State Education Department. So we take all those documents and compile them together and then meet the expectations that we are forced to do to comply with those standards. Will school reopening plans be different throughout the state? Schools even here in the North Country is a reflection of what is going on throughout the state. There's schools as small as 100 and as high as 2,000 students. So each district is very unique in its expectations and the students that we serve. Our plans created by schools for reopen expect to be permanent. This is the ebb and flow. We've given 3 plans in our plan to start with, but even those plans can adapt and change as we move along in this process as we learn more. Will the district's plans be for a safety compliance officer? As I shared with you, the 2 officers, Mr. Sapp and Ms. Rabideau. Will considerations in this document change? Yes, as we learn more information, we will change the document and move forward with that. So briefly, just talking about the plan and how it was compiled. We've been working on this plan since May, the end of the budget season for the 2021 school year, and we've run across a number of plans that we've tried to develop. As people understand, on July 13th, the New York State Education Department came out with a 145-page document, which is also posted on our website, that shows you the areas that we had to consider in our reopening plan. It also eliminated a few of our plans for the fact that 2 critical components in those plans was, one, that we must maintain social distancing. The social distancing was identified as 6 feet apart, so our students have to be a 6 by 6 or 36 square feet apart from other students. The second piece, and also quoted, was and mask. So then the mask the students had to wear also, so some of those other things that you hear about, like partitions, shields, are not sufficient. The 3 models that we came up with for the Peru Central School District. Hybrid model 1 was all students in pre-K through 5th grade were to come back to school. In the middle and the high school, we're going to go to school 2 days per week in the A group and 2 days a week in the B group. And in the middle of the week would be a remote learning day for all students. It also gives the district an opportunity to do deep cleaning. Unfortunately, because of the size of our district, the number of students that we serve, the district could not use that plan and we had to go to the hybrid 2 model. That is pre-K through 12th grade at this time will all be alternating on AA and BB days. So the first part of the week, the AA groups will go 2 consecutive days. If it's a 5-day week, Wednesday would be the remote learning day for all students, and Thursday and Friday would be the in-house learning day for the BB groups. The one piece, and then of course the third option is if our school was closed by the governor, by one of the other departments, then we would go to a complete remote module. And I think that's where, as we will talk later tonight, there's some discrepancies in understanding what remote learning is and learning going through the hybrid 2 model. So I just want to be clear with that just so people can understand that the hybrid 2 is the model that we're going through right now. Okay. Mrs. Rabideau?
Sure. So, Dr. Tomer, if we were unable to get on last night and hear the overview of the plan last night, is there anything we can do about that?
They have an opportunity to see that in its entirety. It's posted on our website. So people can also see the plan that we rolled out in its entirety on the YouTube video.
And right now, we're using hybrid 2 plan. Is there anything more? You just explained it a little bit. Is there anything more you wanted to share on that? Or?
I think the biggest thing on the hybrid 2, I know it has been an adjustment for our families that the kids are coming into school 2 days per week and remote instruction 3 days per week. But the instruction will differ based upon building. I don't know if this group wants me to talk about that at this time, but the piece is that the remote instruction still means that we are providing instruction for kids. It is different. We've improved what we did in the spring, and we're moving forward in that direction this fall.
So, Mr. Storms, there are lots of questions in regards to people thinking AA meant Monday, Tuesday, and BB meant Thursday, Friday. And last night, we kind of came out and said, wait a minute, AA doesn't always mean Monday and Tuesday. Can you explain why that is, please?
Sure, so that can be a little confusing for people. So when we're talking about the AA and the BB model or the schedule that we have put into place, many times it will happen that the AA days will fall on a Monday and a Tuesday, and the BB will fall on a Thursday and a Friday. But in the event that the week is shortened due to a day off for the students, we're going to be condensing that week and allowing students to still get their as much in-person instruction as we possibly can. So in those situations, the students will be in the beginning of the week, 2 days in the beginning of the week, which in that event would be, for example, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday of that particular week would be the BB students. So it will change. We will notify parents in advance so that they're aware of that with our district calendar. And building administrators will be letting them know events. Instead of having our district calendar so specifically identified from the beginning of the school year, we'll actually be letting them know in advance each month. So you'll definitely see, so it's important for parents not to think of AA as always Monday, Tuesday, and BB always as Thursday and Friday, but rather the 2 days in the beginning of the week and 2 days later in the week. So there's 4 days within the week that students will be receiving that instruction.
So on a shortened week, we're really going to lose out on the remote day rather than any in-person days.
Correct. So on one of those days, on one of those weeks, it's shortened. It would be the remote instruction day would be eliminated.
All right, so let's go over to Mrs. Campbell on transportation, because we had lots of questions on that about how arrival is going to work and dismissal will work. Are we still providing transportation? Can siblings sit together on a bus? Do parents have to drop off their children? Can they drop off their children? Can they pick up their children? So if you could give us some overview on transportation, please.
So students that live in the Peru Central School District are entitled to ride transportation to school. So transportation is being offered. At the same time, we understand that we have families in our community that may not feel that they want their child to be on a bus with other children during this crisis. So we're also making plans to be able to accommodate larger numbers of parents driving their children to and from school. Having said that, as far as arrival and dismissal time or how that will work, Each building has a plan set up. It will definitely be different than previous years. We want to limit the number of adults and people, visitors, extra people coming into the building. So we are working out plans for how we will be able to deliver children safely to cars. There will be some waiting, and we'll be working that out with a specific plan. And then as we implement the plan, if it needs to be adjusted because it's not working the way we anticipate it will, we'll modify that. Transportation is by bus, will continue to be available. So what does transportation on the bus look like? Due to social distancing requirements and requirements for mask wearing, a student who is capable of wearing a mask will need to wear a mask on the bus. If a student arrives to get on the bus and does not have a mask, the bus driver will be able to provide that mask to them. Once they are on the bus, students will have assigned seats. Again, this is part of the requirements for cohort and contact tracing, that not only do we know what bus the student was on, but ideally where they were sitting on that bus and who was sitting around them, just so that we can continue to really identify who these students may have had close contact with, even if it was socially distanced. Because of how we're going to set up the transportation and for the distance, to put as much distance between students, it's 22 students is all we can accommodate. It's 1 student per seat. When they enter the bus and they go to their assigned seat, they will sit as far inside the seat, so as close to the window as they can. So one of the questions that was asked is, can siblings sit together? And they cannot, and the reason is because each student on that bus is counted as 1 for 1 seat. And if you put 2 students in a seat, we have now reduced the distance between the children in the other seat. So while it's okay that the 2 family members are together, we've now shortened or reduced the physical distance between the child in 1 seat and the child in the other, because we put 2 in 1 seat. So that's why siblings won't be able to ride and sit together on the bus. Did I answer all of it?
I think you did get it all, and, you know, more information will be following up, you know, specifically in regards to.
I do want to say, I think that some people are asking about, you know, what bus will my child ride? When will we know that? And all of this is the process of collecting the information we did from the surveys, following up with the families who didn't return the survey to make sure we have their information. So now I believe we've compiled what all the principals agreed, we've compiled all that data. Now it's processing it. Then transportation will be sorting out who's in the first half of the week, who's in the second half of the week. And then from there, they'll determine bus routes. And then we will be notifying people of the bus route. And I believe it's very typical in Peru. Your bus driver will call you the day before to give you, or sometime the week before school starts, to give you a tentative time that the bus will arrive. Those things should stay the same, just you know, the number of students on the bus will be different.
Sounds good. So we all know that we're changing our school, and it's gonna be cohort A and cohort B. And I think principals have been working hard on that to make sure that people that need to be together are together, and people that can be apart are apart, and make accommodations as necessary. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Michelle? And also, please let us know, when are we going to find out, is my child cohort A or are they cohort B?
So we are in the hybrid 2 model of learning at the district. And with that hybrid 2 model, we have cohort A and cohort B. And we know that this model of learning is difficult for parents. And so we are working as a group, middle school, high school, intermediate, and primary, at grouping the children by household. And by trying to honor parent requests, which takes a lot of coordination. And so we're working on that diligently and hope to have your cohort group, child's teacher supply list out by the end of next week.
Okay, thank you. And in looking at it, school hours, will they be the same this year coming up, or are the school hours changing at all, Mr. Berry?
So the school hours of learning are not changing. Again, the school hours of learning are not changing. The high school is 7:28 to 2:08. Our first period class starts at 7:28, and we we dismiss at 208. That's going to be adjusted a little bit to dismiss in waves. However, those are learning hours. And in the elementary, the learning hours are 9:05 to 3:05. And again, that doesn't change. The discussion in the air is the arrival and departure time. That will be different as per building. As we gain more information, we'll be able to distribute more information on this. However, the learning times do not change.
Perfect, thank you. So we're just looking at only minor changes so that we can accommodate parents and students dropping off and getting into the building so that they're maintaining a social distance and being safe. Perfect, but learning times are the same. So next, we're going to kind of speak with Ms. Rawson for a few minutes in regards to particulars in her building. So I have several different questions that we'll go through for her, and then we're going to go through those for the intermediate, and then for the middle school, and then for the high school, because it is a little bit different in each building. So each building principal is going to be able to explain how it will work in their particular setting. So, Ms. Rawson, if a parent chooses full remote learning, what does remote learning look like for a primary child?
So full remote learning in the hybrid 2 model, which is what our district is in, would mean that all children are grouped in group A or group B. And so if you're assigned a group B for in-person we have in-person learning, but if you are fully remote, you're still going to have, say you're group B, you're going to access your assignments on those days. You'll have a teacher available to you to provide the video lessons. You will have a teacher who will do live learning time. And you will also have a teachers on Wednesday who will do office hours at a agreed upon time that's convenient for their families.
Okay, so that's in the hybrid 2, on the days when I'm not in session, that's what my remote learning is going to look like?
Right, so you'll have 2 days of access to your teacher where you're getting those lessons. The teacher is going to provide you activities for the other 3 remote days.
Okay. And so will students be expected to log on for live sessions in your remote learning in the primary?
So no, because in the primary, they rely heavily on their parents and their parents' ability to help them access those lessons. And so assignments will be given a week to do and turned back in at the family's leisure, and so that they can plan those things around work schedules. Attendance, whether you're a fully remote student or in the hybrid model, attendance will be taken for each child every day.
So this is like such a big deal for primary students. Students don't yet know who their teacher is going to be, or where their classroom is, or what their schedule is going to look like, or where they need to go on the first day of school. And these little guys coming into school, it's making everybody a little bit nervous, I think. So how can we help that?
So what we're doing is we are working on a modified orientation to ease that transition for our littlest Peruvians from the pre-K to the kindergarten students. Teachers will be sending out welcoming letters and maybe doing some, I know teachers have talked about doing some video welcoming welcome and send out through Parent Square. So we've got some things that we're working on to try and ease transition for coming back to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be great if there were like even a video showing kids where they need to go in one building and everything. So that's a great idea. So are parents going to be riding the bus on the first day with their kiddos like they've always done?
No, unfortunately, we cannot have parents riding the school bus, but we are working on a plan, and I'm not prepared to share those details, but details will follow soon. We're still working out a plan that would be acceptable and minimize the risk of.
Good, I feel better about that. Yeah, thank you. So once they're in the primary and we're having class, are the students going to be in the hallway? Are they going to be switching classrooms? How are they gonna be utilizing bathrooms and how will they be getting their drinking water? I can go back and repeat these if you want. but-
So at the primary level, all classrooms have, students will remain in their classrooms, their desks are socially distanced 6 foot. And bathrooms are in there, we have sinks and soap and water, so children will be washing their hands as they come into the classroom. The teachers will teach and reteach. They will wash their hands when they use the restroom. They will wash their hands before their lunch and their breakfast is brought to them. So there'll be many opportunities within the classroom. We have those facilities, which we're very lucky for that. And the bathrooms are also located in the classrooms.
Okay, so I know part of this question was that we said water fountains are gonna be turned off. So are kids gonna be having to get their drinks of water out of a sink where everybody's just washed their hands, or how are we doing that, was the kind of the question.
So we have faucets in the classrooms where students can fill up bottles.
Okay.
Their own bottles.
And then, of course, there's always hand sanitizer available in classrooms as well.
There will be, but we are gonna encourage our students to wash their hands with soap and water, and because we have that available.
How about, like, are students gonna be walking in the halls at all if they have to go anywhere? When can you foresee students walking in the halls, and what do you think that would look like?
So there will be times that students will walk in the halls, say at dismissal, if they have to go to the nurse. We do have some floor vinyls coming, keeping children in, staying to the right. We have flow of traffic that we're working on. Some floor vinyls that will show 6 feet social distancing for our little kids so that they have those visual reminders. So we have some things in place should students have to move in the hallways.
And we know that Peru has said that students are going to wear masks and be socially distanced. So in the primary, what do you think about mask breaks?
So teachers minimally will give mask breaks every 45 minutes. However, teachers have the discretion based on their classroom makeup and the developmental age of their students to provide mask breaks as needed. They will use what they see in the classroom to determine if a student needs breaks sooner than that, they will be given breaks sooner than that, and maybe build up stamina. All kids are different, and we recognize that, and we want a safe learning environment, but we want students to feel comfortable also.
We did have this question about recess and playground equipment.
To start off, students will have recess, but we will not be utilizing the playground equipment to start off. We will quadra off some spots for children to be outside and appropriately have their recess. But right now, we're not going to permit playground equipment to be used.
And in the primary, is there any support that you might be offering to parents for working with their children at home?
Sure, we'll send some things out through our new parent square. If you haven't signed up, I encourage you to do so. That's a way that teachers are going to communicate with you. That's the way that I can communicate with you. And you can communicate with us. I also would like to look at some opportunities for parents to get some training, or there's some webinars on Seesaw, which is the platform that we will use for kids who, whether they're hybrid or remote, to return work, so it's less paper going back and forth to school. Students can take a picture and upload their work to their teacher, and the teacher can comment right away on their work. So Seesaw, again, is the platform we used in emergency, and we've just gotten better at using it, and we'll continue to use that throughout our models, our remote models this school year as well.
So I think I covered most of the questions that came in from last night in regards to the primary. Anything else you wanted to add before I move on to intermediate, Ms. Rawson?
I did want to add one more thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about what a mask break looks like. So a mask break in the primary would be that students are socially distanced 6 foot apart. They're able to remove their mask and for 10 minutes or less. So is what a mask break looks like. And so if we're outdoor, teachers can take children outside to do this. They can do this within the classroom because the desks will be 6 feet apart.
Perfect. All right, thank you. So let's go ahead on to Mrs. Campbell and the intermediate school. So you kind of had a little preview of those questions. We're going to kind of go through the same questions again, but just hear what it's going to look like in the 3 through 5. So first question was, if a parent or family was to choose full remote learning for their child, what does that look like?
So I would like to, if I could just start before I answer that
Oh,
question.
sure, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to share that we've been having our teachers come in, and especially in the intermediate, but I want to say this is happening in every building. Groups of teachers are coming together and working to plan for those first few weeks of school, think about how they want to design their instruction, determining curriculum priorities, because this is, although we're not an emergency, this is still a very different looking educational situation than we've ever been in before. And I've had the pleasure, being new as a principal to this building, to work with all 3 of my grade levels this week. And the work that they're doing and the conversations that they're having are really tremendous. And so I wanted to say that because I think we're really looking at things from a variety of perspectives to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and trying to support our parents to the best that we can. So when it comes to full remote learning, we've tossed around a few ideas, but I think we're going to be very similar to what the primary is doing, in that the students that are fully remote will have 2 days that are very much independent, working through assignments on their devices, and then things that they can do off their devices, but that supplement what they're doing. And then they will have access to a teacher 3 of the days for direct instruction, some live learning time, and opportunities to connect with the parents at night during an office hour. So that's the version of a full remote would look like.
Okay. And so how about the hybrid too in your building? And within that, are students going to be expected to be logging on for live sessions in your building?
So we appreciate that at the elementary level, students can't do these things independently. They probably still need some adult support to be able to truly access and utilize a device. Obviously, as they get older, 5th graders, they're a little more independent, but still, it's not like a high school or a middle school student who can be very independent in how they access their learning materials. So we are not expecting students to come in, if they normally come into school at 9:05 or 9:15, to join their class remotely. That is not the expectation for the days that they're learning at home. The expectation is that the teachers will have assignments that they've provided, and that's part of what they've been working on this week and will continue to work on as we move towards September and then throughout the whole school year, is developing a plan that looks, in education, we call it blended learning, where there are things that students will do at home that they can do at home independently, whether it's a review of something they were taught in class that week or something that helps them preview and prepare for what they're going to be taught when they're in person the following week. They'll have dedicated information. They'll be able to contact their teacher either through their Google Classroom or, if the parent has a question, they can use Parent Square. So there will be some ability for communication, but it will not be live direct instruction on the at-home days. On the weeks where we have a Wednesday, that's a full remote day for everybody. Office hours will be available. There will be some time. There are going to be some check-ins they're doing, so that will be a login. And the timing on that, we've discussed it at all of our grade levels, is really going to be based on, if I'm the teacher and these are the students that are assigned to me and these are their families, what works for them? So if we have families that are available during what are school hours, that's when we'll have our check-in times. If we have the families though that are really only available in the evenings, then we'll adjust our day and we'll be available in the evenings. But we're really going to target it around each teacher being able to do what they need for the children and the families that they're supporting and serving.
So I'm going to put you on the hot seat a little bit and piggyback if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so if my child's in school in the bricks and mortar, then they're going to be working with a teacher, and doing more of a hands-on type activity.
Yes.
And then when they're in the remote session, it was really hard for a lot of parents last year to try to teach new skills in that scenario because the curriculum has just changed so much. So how are we working to support that?
So the idea is that when they have those independent at-home days, that the material is something they've done before. Again, if it's not something, if they're not completely comfortable, they need some help, they can contact their teacher through the Google Classroom to get some help. We also have discussed with the teachers, it's okay for a student to, through the Google Classroom, to say, Mrs. Rabideau, this isn't making sense to me, I forgot what we did in class, can I get some extra help with this? And then we'll adjust and work out when is that going to happen. Or if we can't get it to them until they return to school, then they can stop on that assignment and move on to something else that they are comfortable with. So it's really,
The new skills will be in person
yes.
with the teacher when the kiddos are present, and then the practicing kind of activities will be when they're in the remote. So the parents aren't having to do new instruction of those math skills.
So actually, and this is one thing I'd love to see our parents kind of get involved with our students on. So this is an example of something we've talked about. If we're going to introduce a reading concept, or if we do have an independent novel versus our Wonders curriculum, we might have the children on their home day watch a trailer. So there's book trailers. Not a lot of people know that, but there are book trailers. We might have the children watch a book trailer, talk a little bit, like maybe write a little piece about what do they think the book trailer, what's exciting them about the book, or if they really don't think they want to read the book, why not? So a little personal reflection on what they think about the book. If the books that we typically use are set in a historical setting or something, they will have a little research piece with some links and things where they can go and do a little research on the time period. So those are all skills that even a third grader can do all the way up. And then when they come to class, that's where they'll start to do some read alouds and we'll work on some reading, but then they'll also use that time to delve into the discussion. So we've read some of the book, or you can listen to some, and they'll be able to share with their peers what's happening, what they think is going to happen, draw parallels to other things. So that really engaging in-person conversations, we want to maximize our in-person time. We really are staying away from showing videos and doing worksheets in the classroom. We want hands-on interaction, and then leaving these things that are independent that you would normally sit at your desk and do. Those are the things they can do at home.
I like that. I think it takes the pressure off the parents of feeling like they have to be teachers, and it puts the teaching in the court of the experts that have been doing it and training in it for years. So that's great.
I just want, because I think that one maybe people, math, I think I just always find that when I talk to parents, if there's something they get concerned about, it's math. And I think what we're going to be able to do and what we're working on is having resources available, so if a child is at home and is getting stuck, they know what resources to kind of pull from to try to support and help themselves. And again, that's really a situation where people would they may reach out to their teacher and say, this is an issue I'm having, can you help me with this?
Yeah. And it's definitely going to be a change this year because now you guys have one-to-one.
Yes.
So that will be a huge help to, I think, families.
We've had families reach out and talk about how they only had one device, trying to share among multiple students or children. That they had children at different grade levels, and they were both for the same time, and they only had one device, and one child had to miss and the other was on. So yeah, I'm excited that each child in the 3 through 5 is going to have their own device.
That's awesome. So, okay, sorry, I took us off a little bit from the questions, but I think that was valuable. So thank you for entertaining me. Again, students don't yet know who their teacher is, which is not typical in Peru, or maybe they're not sure where their classroom is because the building is so large, or what their schedule's gonna look like, or where they go on the first day when they step off that bus. It's gonna be overwhelming. What do you think?
So we have plans for that. Again, we're still working out the specifics on our arrival, but it's going to look different than it has in the past. So I think if you've been in Peru a long time, if you're very familiar with the Peru arrival, the buses all line up and all the kids get off. Well, in these situations with social distancing, the things we have to do, we can't do that anymore. So students are going to be coming in more of a one bus at a time, or bus drops. That definitely is part of what we have to include. So what we will have is, and we've already talked about this, again, been working with everyone, it's all hands on deck. Classroom teachers outside their classroom so they can be there to greet people, to say, oh, I'm so-and-so, here, you wanna come this way. All of our other adults and everybody in the building along the path that they would be taking from one spot to the other, whether they're getting off the bus or being dropped off by a parent, to get them to the right location. We do hope, we've got a very short window of time, but, Mrs. Ross's concept about the video and like a welcome and how do you do this, we definitely want to do that as well. But I don't want to rely that they've all watched it or that even if you see a video, sometimes when you get to the physical setting, it doesn't necessarily make sense to you. So really being able to direct them with adult support. And I do think my fifth graders in fifth grade that are out there, as a principal, I really love to talk to my oldest group in the building. You do know pretty much where you're going. You've already been there. You can lend some support and help. You can't touch, you can't do that, but I think you definitely, if you're a fifth grader, you're walking in with a third grader and they say, I'm in Mrs. Laundry's class, you probably can say, oh, when we get up here, that's this door, stop here on your way. I'm looking forward to that because I think we do have wonderful children that are gonna be able to help each other out.
Yeah, that's always been great about the Peru community. So from there, our students in the intermediate, are they gonna be switching their classrooms at all?
So we don't change classes like the middle or high school does. If the weather cooperates, we can go outside, they will go to PE. They will go to music, which we also anticipate being outside. Art will come to them. What am I missing? Library will come to them and technology will come to them. And we did talk a little bit about today that some of those may go outside too. If the weather's nice, it's a chance for them to get out, move, go somewhere else. But they really will not change classrooms. Their day will be in that, but we hope to have opportunities where they get to at least leave the classroom and go somewhere else, but not be in another confined space.
Nice. So they might not leave the classroom like as a group traditionally per se, but how will students be in the hallways? What does hallway usage look like? Because I know in the intermediate it's a little different. There's not always restrooms right within the classrooms. And then as well with that, I know that water fountains will be turned off, but students still need to be able to access drinking water. So what's the plan for that? And also peak if you need.
That's okay. So I'll start with we have water filling stations. So if you haven't been in our schools in a while, or maybe you have, you can picture the traditional water fountain that everybody bent over and tried to drink from. Those are what is turned off, right? Because we can't have people, there's a lot of germs there. So, but it's those same things we've updated and modernized, and we have what are called filling stations. So you take your water bottle and you put it, there's an infrared sensor, fills the water. So those will still be on. So students who have water bottles, and if they don't, the teachers are each gonna have disposable cups in their classroom, so the student can get a disposable cup, go out to that same space and get it filled. I've met with the teachers and we've talked about, even though it's intermediate, and this isn't something you typically think of, when you think of an intermediate building, you think of children saying, excuse me, I need to use the restroom, and getting a pass or somehow leaving the classroom and coming back in sort of as an individual. But because we want to limit students just being in the hallway, we want to make sure they have proper supervision so we can make sure we know where they are and that they're practicing social distancing. We're going to, at the beginning of the year, we are building in bathroom and restroom breaks into our day. So there will be a time where all children will have the opportunity to, and it also is going to serve as a movement break, a chance to get up from their desks, step out, practice some math facts while you're walking socially distanced down the hall, whatever we do to keep that engagement, but they'll do their restroom break. Those will be opportunities for hand washing as well. The other thing in our building that's definitely, this is every building, but they will wash their hands with soap and water prior to eating, and they will wash their hands with soap and water after eating. They may at other points in the day be using hand sanitizer, and we've talked about that, but really the hand sanitizer is about something's happened, the kids touch their face, or maybe they have a little runny nose, it's got nothing to do with COVID, so allergies or whatever. That might be when a kid uses hand sanitizer after they deal with that, and then move on. But it's not, we're going to have time so we can make sure they wash their hands. We all know soap and water is best, And that's what we're going to build into our day.
I like that, because we want to teach kids when is it appropriate to wash your hands versus when is it appropriate to use hand sanitizer.
And I think it's really important that, that everyone understand that this also allows us to let the kids move a bit. You know, these breaks and things, and when we're talking about it, some of the teachers were thinking, oh, you know, breaks in the school day mean, are we losing instructional time? But we said, you know, there's other things that when we had kids in and out and moving around and more going on, we were losing instructional time that way. So really, we're just it's just a different way, but it's probably the same amount of time in terms of just how the whole day flows.
Well, and I feel like with a teacher, an adult following them and specifically keeping an eye on them and being able to listen in the hallway outside the restroom, we know that the kiddos are taking care of business and then making sure that they're doing it in a cleanly and safe way.
Oh, and I don't think I said that. Obviously though, if there's a child and they absolutely need to use the restroom and it's not break time yet, they're going to be allowed to go.
Oh, good.
Nobody's being told, no, you can't use the bathroom. And kind of our plan is teacher ensures that by, you know, looking out in the hall, there's no one else in the hall and we're gonna have spots on the floor outside of the bathroom to kind of, this is where you stand if you're waiting to go in. No one's waiting there, so then, okay, you can go ahead, just to make sure we're not having like 3 or 4 kids waiting to use the restroom, because without somebody really standing there watching them, how would we make sure that they, you know, they're kids, they're gonna wanna get close to each other and do those things.
Perfect. So we know that Peru has said that our students are wearing masks and being socially distant. So I know that everyone's going to be offering mask breaks. Do you have a plan for mask breaks in the intermediate?
Yep, so we're looking at similar to the primary, 30 to 45 minutes of a break. Again, they're socially distanced at their desks. They'll be able to take their mask break at their desk, take their mask off. I think they'll probably be, you know, 5 minutes or less. If we do, and we talked about that does, like one teacher, or their immediate idea was, oh, so we're working on something, kids are like finishing up a project or whatever they're working on, and they say, okay, when you finish your project, go ahead, take your mask off. So then as each kid finishes up, they take their mask off, last child finishes up, then they kind of time from there, put it back on. Just so, you know, so it could be a natural flow of the day, right? It's not like something extra, but at the same time, we've also discussed, you know, kid raises their hand and says, I've got to take this. They can have it, there can be an individual mask break. We know children, we know group effect, that's probably not the right term, but one wants a mask break, they may all. But the teachers, at least as we've all met and discussed it, have seemed very flexible and willing to say, yeah, you're right. And if they all choose to have a mask break, then that's when we'll take our mask break.
All right, and.
Oh, I do think too that we talked about making it a little fun.
Oh,
Like, how long can you keep your mask on for today? Like, if it's.
and incentivize.
Just more just like, okay, let's set the timer, can we go a little bit longer today or something like that, just to make it a little bit fun. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Because this came up today and I think it's something, again, every building knows they're going to need to address. Obviously, we are very concerned about dignity for all students and making sure everybody is treated with respect and kindness. And so our counselors have already discussed embedding in some of their program this idea of how we're kind to people, that we're cautious, like we're not making fun of people's masks, kids who can't wear a mask. So we're already starting to put that into our counseling curriculum, knowing that that may become an issue.
So I know you just talked for a second, so I'm going to divert for just 1 second about kids who can't wear masks, because that really falls under my domain. And so I will address that again later, but that's kids that have intensive medical needs, and we are entertaining that, and we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis. I'll address it again later on, but just so you know, it's that's a medical issue if kids aren't wearing a mask. There's reasons. So the other question that was coming out about how about intermediate playground equipment and recess, and what's that all going to be like for our kiddos?
So we're gonna have recess, and again, just kind of like PE music, the weather will cooperate, let's all hope for good weather. We're going to get them outside, and we're looking at like kind of quadrants, like this is this class's space, and this is this class's space. Our playground equipment's a little different because it's actually metal versus wood, but I have not had a chance yet to really look at it with the buildings and grounds and facilities person to make sure can we use it or can't we? So we're gonna look at it closely tomorrow and make some decisions about, are there pieces we can use because we can disinfect or clean them between use? Or is it just gonna be one of those things that we can't? But if we are putting kids outside, we can't use the equipment, we will find a way to get them some activity, structured activity that they can use, at least, even if, some of us and the teachers have talked about even taking walks, 6-foot distance walk. It may not sound very exciting, but when the rest of your day is pretty much sitting at a desk, then it may be good, so.
And the last question I think I had here was, how are you gonna support parents teaching their children at home?
So we're working on that already. So we're hoping to send out some information ahead of time, kind of the parents can read through to get ready for the Chromebooks that their children are going to have and they'll be aware. We have been working with our technology department and tech integration is discussing, being able to, we wanna do something when they pick up their Chromebook, make sure that they at least know some basics. But the other piece is so we offer webinars to our teachers, we offer webinars to other, as we do professional development, so having some webinars, some live opportunities for our tech people to be available at night for parents, like for an hour, that they can log in or they can join, and they can go over specific things. And those will probably be building driven because while we're using similar tools, there are definitely differences between each building. But having those opportunities for parents to get that. Also, this time around, so we did learn some things from the first time. Students will know how to put in a technology ticket, like they need help with their technology, and parents will have a place where they can put in a dedicated technology ticket. And that's really important and a big change because during the spring, if you had technology problem, typically what happened is the child reached out to their teacher or the parent reached out to the teacher. Well, then the teacher had to contact the tech part. And then it was like 3 people to get back to that. Now, it'll be as quick as, one of our tech people is here today, that ticket will go in, it'll get assigned to somebody and you could get a call, pretty, depending on how many tickets there are and how busy it is, but it'll be direct to the tech person, not 3 people to get to the tech person. So I think that's a big upgrade in our plan.
So I think that was it for the building questions. Ms. Campbell, thank you very much. Did you have any other closing remarks before I move into the middle school?
No, I feel like I talked a lot, I'm really.
No, it's all good information and this is what we're here for, so. Mr. Storms,
Hello.
we're turning up the heat on your seat over there. So, in the middle school, if a parent chooses full remote learning, what's that gonna be like?
So in the hybrid 2 model that we're currently in, and a parent chooses the remote learning for their child because of family concerns or concerns for specific health reasons, their child will participate. They will be issued a schedule just like everyone else in the school. So they'll either be on the an A day schedule or a B day schedule. And those students will, on the days of their scheduled classes, for example, if they're an A-day student, they will sign in to their A-day classes and at the scheduled time that they would have if they were here in school.
So first period is starting at 7:28.
So if you're
And
on.
I'm supposed to log in at 7:28 to my first period class.
And we're gonna be doing attendance that way, so those students will actually be part of the class. If they're in remote learning during the hybrid 2 model, they will actually be part of that class. The teacher may be asking them questions in a Google Meet. They actually may be interacting with other students in the classroom during that time. So that's how we're going to be doing the remote portion of remote learning in the hybrid 2 model.
And so that's when a parent was choosing the full remote, you're logging in right with your class at that time. You probably wouldn't need to log into a study hall or to your lunch.
I'm glad you bring that up because we aren't going to expect the students to log in during a study hall. That's going to be a free time for them.
Okay.
And that's also going to be the same thing for lunch. So they're not required to log in during those times. Those are free times for them in their schedule. But all classes, physical education, family and consumer science, art, music, those types of classes, we'll be expecting them to log in on those 2 days during that week. So they don't have to log in on the other 2 days, just the 2 days that they would have been scheduled to be.
So whichever days they're assigned to that cohort. So if I'm gonna be assigned to a cohort, an A or a B, and even if my parents have chosen that, I'm staying home for whatever reason, because we want to do full remote, I'm still an A and I still have to log in on those A days at my scheduled class times in order to prove my attendance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And so that's what full remote kiddos have got. How about hybrid 2? What does that kind of look like in the middle school?
Sure, so very similar to what Mrs. Campbell was talking about in regards to what the students are going to do. I think what's really important for parents to understand is when we were in the emergency remote learning in the spring, we've really taken a long look at what we did and how to better do what we were doing. So a lot of work has been happening this summer with our teams, and teachers have really been looking at ways to really improve that piece. So students will have live instruction, will be in school 2 days a week. And the other days during the week when they're actually at home and they'll be doing remote activities, they'll actually be doing activities that are more independent type activities that they should be more comfortable with. Now, we realize there's going to be some questions and some things that students are going to need extra help with, and that's what Wednesdays are going to be for, or the middle of the week, or the C day, which is a cleaning day in the district. But that is an opportunity for the kids to really be prepared for those more hands-on type activities, which will be happening on those days when the students are here in school. So that's the important aspect of the hybrid 2 model, is that the students are working in their Google Classroom on those days when they're at home, those 3 days a week when they're actually at home completing activities for their teachers. So what's really important to understand is that those students are going to have activities in multiple classes, just like they would if they were in school. So they're going to be busy on those 3 days.
So it's very similar to what the other buildings are doing. We're maximizing when we have kiddos in person with the new instruction and those hands-on things. And when kiddos are at home on the remote days, they're doing more of the practice and the preparation things, again, so that parents aren't feeling like they're responsible for doing the instruction because the instruction has been given while students are in school.
That's right.
Okay. So good. And that definitely is a change, and I think for the good, because middle school math can get the best of us. At least I know I've been there before. So students, they don't know their schedules. So, and like who their teachers are and where are they gonna report on the first day. And so how are we gonna get that information disseminated, and what do you think?
I'd like to tell you that we're all done right now, but we're not. We've been working diligently on it in the last few days and over the summer, in getting our groupings made, waiting for information from our surveys, reaching out to families, making sure that we're placing students in the groups that families need them to be placed in for childcare purposes and for support at home, as well as work schedules and things like that. So we will be sending that stuff out, like Mrs. Rawson said earlier, by the end of next week. Fingers crossed, we'll have it ready for next week.
So I'm thinking of those 6th graders that have not been into your middle school before and are probably a little nervous about switching into the big school. Any plans on that?
Yeah, so we actually did have a scheduled meeting next week for an orientation, but that orientation we're going to have to push back a little bit, just because first of all, we can't be here for it, and second of all, I need to be able to give the kids, I want the kids to actually receive all this information in the mail before I actually start talking about it with them. I want them to have it in case there's questions. So there will be Google Meet sessions for the 6th grade families and the students coming up after they've received their information from the middle school. And then we'll be addressing those kind of concerns and those questions. We did do an orientation when they were in 5th grade coming over, so they actually got to see kind of the tour of our building already. But like Mrs. Campbell was saying, sometimes the tour alone in a virtual world is not as good as it would be if they were here. So we'll definitely have those conversations, and there'll be many adults around for the students on those first days when it actually arrives.
And also hopefully some of those 8th graders can help
For
out
sure,
some of
for
those
sure.
6th graders. So the next question that was coming about was, you know, in the middle school, the switching of the classrooms, students being in the hallways, the bathroom passes. Are we gonna stagger bells so that kiddos aren't all flooding the halls at once and trampling over one another? And the drinking water situation.
So boy, there's a lot of questions
That's
there.
a lot of questions,
That's
so
okay.
I will be happy to repeat any that
No
you
problem.
need.
I think that anyone who's been in the middle school knows that we definitely have our challenges out there as we move into into this school year. But we definitely are taking all of the social distancing into consideration. So as much as possible, students are going to be in their cohort or staying together as much as possible. But what's really important to say is middle school students will be switching classes. They will be going to different classes throughout the day. And so we won't be using the bell system like we typically have used in past years. Teachers will be releasing them, and we'll be using our intercom system to let people know when they're going to be moving, who's going to be moving, those types of things. So that's one of the pieces that we're going to be putting into place. Also, we're going to, when we're talking about bathroom breaks as a school, we're going to have to rely a little bit on our students as well, in making choices and really understanding what social distancing is about. And that's going to be really important those first few days of school, that we're going to be taking that opportunity to really reinforce that with our students. But on the same token, we're going to have passes given to students or released from the classroom to go use the restroom when needed. That will still take place. Students will have an opportunity to get water. We will be shutting off the regular drinking fountain like Mrs. Campbell had mentioned, but we will be using the filling stations, and we have cup dispensers that will be there readily available for our students.
So, because I know sometimes, you know, especially with middle school, it might be hard to remember to bring that water bottle home to get washed, which is so important right now, and
Yes.
then bring it back. So even though we hope they're doing that, if that fails, we have
Yes.
a backup plan of having some of those cups available.
Right.
Perfect. And I know this wasn't really in here, but I think you probably know, middle school lockers.
Yeah, so we're gonna start off the year without lockers. We're not gonna start the school year using our lockers. And we're gonna see how things go and see where we are. But right in the beginning of the school year, we will not be using lockers. We will not be using gym lockers or the locker room or the hall lockers as the beginning of the school year. So students will really need to bring their stuff around, and they're gonna have backpacks. And we're gonna encourage them not to carry too much in their backpack. We're gonna try to limit the amount of stuff that they're gonna need, but that's how they're gonna be able to keep their stuff together.
And that makes sense because kids like to congregate around the locker like adults around the water cooler.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
yeah, so that makes sense. That will keep them safer. I know they'll be carrying a backpack, but it seems like that's less risky than allowing them to congregate around those lockers that are so close together.
We're so close together already.
Absolutely. All right. Masks. We know Peru has said that our students are wearing masks and being socially distant. What does the mask break look like in the middle school?
So when students are at their seats in their classroom, we are going to be encouraging teachers to allow mask breaks, but that means
We won't take it for granted that someone who looks like them can grow up to lead a nation like ours, and that Harris may be the first. But Michelle Obama says she won't be the last, adding, quote, "Go get him."
so.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Storms, do I need to repeat that?
No, I
We're
think I'm
talking
good.
mask
Mask breaks. So middle school students will be given opportunities to do mask breaks, and our teachers, we're going to be flexible with that. So what I mean by flexible with that is the teachers have the opportunity to take their class once class starts outside, if we have good weather, it's a great place to do that as well. But if they need to do a mask break during their period, we'll have scheduled mask breaks. But just like the other schools, we're going to provide those kids with mask breaks, but also if a student needs a mask break or asks for a mask break, of course, we're going to allow them to do that. We're going to do it in a socially distant situation and as safely as possible.
And as far as keeping your hands clean, there's going to be the opportunity for students to wash hands, and there's going to be hand sanitizer, both of those
Absolutely.
options.
I think that it'll be really important for parents to help me out with this one, because middle school students tend to like to run in the bathroom or go to lunch and maybe skip those types of things. So we're going to be encouraging that and doing quite a bit of conversation about ensuring that kids have that opportunity to wash their hands and having them do that, but we'll also have the hand sanitizer there as well.
And how will the district support parents teaching children at home in the middle school perspective?
Sure. So we actually will. Last year, when we were in emergency remote learning, we had a few videos that we actually did send out to help parents with things like Google Classroom and things like that. We will continue to work on creating those types of videos to support parents, but also, like Mrs. Campbell was saying, when we actually get to handing out our Chromebooks for the school year, we'll also be able to address concerns and questions there. I think one of the pluses is that the tech department has the opportunity now to address some of the tech concerns right off the bat, rather than going through 3 people, which I think will definitely be helpful. And then also the teachers, administration, counselors, we've all been pretty open at being able to walk people through concerns that they're having and answer questions that way as well. But I do think one of the most effective tools that have been shared with families are the videos that we had that really support or answer questions that they might have or things that they might not have known.
I think that was it from the kind of questions that we had compiled for the middle school. Is there anything else that you wanted to just share with your
Sure.
families?
So I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about drop-off and pickup of students and how we're going to stagger it and keep students socially distant. Mr. Berry and I are working closely because we share the building on how we're going to do that. More information will be shared with parents, more detailed information on the drop-off, but all of the dropping off of students and picking up of students will be staggered, so students are not congregating together, and so that's definitely the forefront of our thought process at this point.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Mr. Storms. And we are making it into the high school with Mr. Berry. So, first of all, Mr. Berry, if a parent or family chooses that they're going to go full remote learning, what does remote learning look like in your building?
So remote learning in the high school, fortunately or unfortunately, because we can never hear many, sometimes, especially in this situation, I don't think we can hear some information too many times. I'm going to echo a lot of what Mr. Storm said. But if you are choosing to fully educate your student in a remote manner, they're still going to be placed in a cohort A or B. While in cohort A or B, they're expected to remote in to the high school schedule just as their schedule appears when it's delivered to them in the hard copy. So with that being said, if ELA is first period, a student on full remote is expected to log into ELA at 7:28 in the morning. And then let's call them in the A cohort. They will go through their day, and again, to echo Mr. Storms, they will not have to log into their lunch. They will not have to log into study hall, but all other classes they will log in to be a part of that lesson. To jump into some of the chat as well on this topic, will live sessions be recorded and posted for students to go back if they needed explanations? That could certainly happen depending on what's going on that day for the teacher. I'm sure that will be a practice that's utilized in the secondary level in high school. On the 3 other days, the days that a student isn't expected to be live, the remote days, they all have the same expectations as the students who are in the classroom. And that's going to be certain activities that there is a send out by a teacher and then a receipt of some level of data, whether it was watching a video engaging in a certain activity, critiquing a student's commentary on a online forum, whatever it may be, because that's going to act as our tracking of attendance for those days.
So it's similar in that the time that they're remoting in live is where they're getting that teacher interaction, that direct instruction, putting it in the hands of the professionals so that parents aren't having to try to figure out the curriculum when they're at home on the other days, on the remote days. And then on the remote days, they're doing more of those practice kinds of activities, review
Correct.
and kind of things.
Correct.
Perfect.
Or could even possibly be getting front-loaded information for the live time to be coming.
Great. And so hybrid 2, what is that gonna look like? Are students expected to be logging on for live if they're in hybrid 2? Because that's a little bit different than full remote learning.
If they are in hybrid 2, a student will be here in person in one of the 2 cohorts, A or B. They'll follow their schedule, like we had alluded to earlier, that the 728 to 208 schedule is still being followed. And they will, while in person, we're encouraging our teachers to be doing the things that would be most valuable for their in-person time, which would most likely be support of a lot of the concepts that the student may have had to delve into on their own. On the other 3 days, just as the remote student, there will be certain activities that the student is expected to be responsible for. And again, it comes out from the teacher and it's got to come back to the teacher within the parameters of time so we can mark our attendance and give students credit for their efforts and work.
Again, students don't yet know, like, who's my homeroom teacher, where the class is, especially freshmen coming in might be a little bit more in this boat. And the first day of school, when they step off that bus, their first day back on campus, how are we going to help them with that and getting their schedule and all of that kind of stuff?
So needless to say, things are completely different. And to echo Mr. Storms, we need to, as a high school, when we can gather all this information in the next week and a half or so, get the information out to parents and students, get the schedules out to parents and students, have them digest it a little bit. Just as someone referenced both in the chat and then talking with Mr. Storms through his talk about the middle school and his orientation, our 9th grade orientation date can be wiped off the calendar for now and replaced with Google Meets and other ways that we are going to orient our 8th graders into high school, and also simply setting up and distribution of Chromebooks and a level of training for all families who are getting these Chromebooks and setting them up for the education to come. We're also going to embed with all these transitions for our high school students, no matter their grade level, embed trainings into the first days of school where students focus on acclimating themselves to the apps and the technology that they'll be relying upon.
Perfect. And so will high school students switch their classrooms at all? What's it gonna look like in the halls? Is it gonna be that packed, jammed hallway that I remember you can barely get through? Same thing, it's in here with how are they gonna be using the bathrooms? Are the bells gonna be staggered? How are they getting drinking water? I'll repeat any of those you need.
That's okay. I think we'll be able to cover it. By virtue of simply cutting down the population in school, we're already taking that congestion down quite a bit, number one. Number two, the hallways are going to be two-way for some hallways where we create lanes, so to speak, and students will walk 6 feet apart in lines. And we create lanes where they can stay socially distanced and travel in a safe manner. Some hallways don't allow for that, so they'll become one-way hallways. 2 stairwells don't allow for that, they become one-way stairwells. However, we have other stairwells that can still be two-way. So we'll utilize those traffic patterns, teach those traffic patterns to keep kids socially distanced as they travel. Also, we are gonna stagger, just as the middle school, we're gonna stagger our dismissal time per period and put 3 or 4 kids out of each classroom in waves so they can then get to their next destination in waves rather than in one clump and waiting. To address other things that have come up in the chat at the same time are areas in which students leave a space and then new students enter a space. Are those areas going to be disinfected? And the answer is yes, we're going to wipe down those areas. The teachers are going to wipe down those areas as the students are dismissed and come back. We do have a pass system in the high school when students travel. We will not use the plastic pass anymore, that you bring it back and hang it on the wall or whatever it was. If a teacher had a little knick-knacky thing that they allowed a student to carry around, we're not going to use that anymore. We're going to have paper passes. We are going to be extremely diligent about the sign out and sign back in of students into classrooms when they do go to the bathroom. And we are going to monitor the bathrooms, and I say that, and no one's going to stand in the bathroom and watch, but we're certainly going to make sure that there's no more than 2 people in a bathroom at a time, and probably even sign in and out of the bathrooms to make sure that we are tracing our path.
Okay. And with doing that, I know it's not necessarily on here, but I think lockers, again, because they're a popular place to gather for kiddos to be close to one another and exchange their germs. What are we doing about that in the high school?
Well, we're going to start our year without lockers. Students are not going to congregate in any space. Again, we're eating lunches in classrooms in a smaller socially distanced setting. We are going right to our first period class when you enter the building. There's no place to congregate. There's no need to congregate, as we set up our schedule a little bit differently and have staff to help students get to where they need to get and move into a safer situation than congregating. So that's going to be certainly a culture change, but it's a culture that we have to be sure we put in place to keep people safe.
So kiddos will be using some backpacks in the high school.
They will utilize their backpacks. I know it's a complete culture 360 for us, but I think we could I think a lot of people can say that they're in a culture 360 right now. We're no different.
We gotta go with the times and what's perfect right now. Perfect, thank you. So masks, again, we'll say it one more time. Peru has said that students are gonna wear masks and be socially distanced. What do you think masks and mask breaks are gonna look like in the high school?
In the high school, it's going to be very similar to what Mr. Storm spoke about. Teacher discretion and we're looking at moments of time where students are socially distanced and they can take their mask off to regroup and rejuvenate. We've been in here for an hour and 15 minutes and I could use a mask break. So with that being said, we have to be very cognizant of that. And also, if it's outside of the teacher delineated mask break and a student needs to take the mask off, we can also, we have a pass system. A student can sign out, they can step into the hallway and they can rejuvenate and come back in. Those practices we'll have to use our best judgment to make sure that we are safe, yet meeting the comfort level of our students and still getting an education at the same time.
So, there's soap and water in the bathrooms, there's gonna be hand sanitizer around. What are your thoughts on how that's gonna work out in the high school when kids are needing to eat and clean up?
Well, we're gonna have, obviously, the district's made a great effort and investment in putting hand sanitizer just in every space and available to students all the time. Soap and water, obviously, is the best method to do it. We do have, obviously, access to bathroom spaces where students can wash their hands. By the time your students in high school, we will remind and teach and continue to provide opportunity for them to do that and have the things they need to wash their hands or disinfect as they move in to eat their lunch or even simply just move from one space to another.
And down to the end for you, how do you see supporting parents that are needing to work with their children at home? I know high schoolers are a lot more independent, but what's the plan there? Even though high schoolers are independent, they still sometimes can use a little help, and parents sometimes, the one conversation that I had from March to June last year when we went into the situation was, I had, we call a parent, Matt, your son hasn't done any of his assignments, and they had no idea. And I think I echo what Ms. Rawson said and Ms. Campbell, Mr. Storms. Utilizing Parent Square and the communications through Parent Square, I think, is really important for our teachers to and our parents to be sure that they're signed up for that app. Again, to echo something Ms. Campbell had highlighted, our high school teaching teams have also been meeting, and one of their biggest focuses in their time is how are we going to support these families who are going to be in situations that they're not used to and completely different parameters and rules of the game. So teachers are planning and thinking and putting their best foot forward into coming up with strategies to help families. Parent Square is terrific.
And we're also going to have professional development for parents, so to speak, where we will have videos and live sessions available for trainings and simply just information sessions, or even just, check out this quick 2-minute clip. It can tell you exactly how to link your Google Classroom to the Google Calendar. It's easy, and it will give your son or daughter an alarm on their phone when an assignment's due. Those sorts of things will be there to support.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's gonna be great that parents have, we've streamlined it so that parents just have a few places to check the parent square, maybe a Google Classroom, or maybe Seesaw. They're not having all these different logins all the time to work with. So I think that's gonna make it, that's a big difference from the spring. So thank you, building principals, for going around with me in those questions. I'm gonna go over to Mr. Sapp, get him on the hot seat a little bit, because the districts are all charged with COVID screening and taking temperatures, and how is that going to work for the district?
So that's an important component of our COVID-19 risk reduction strategy. It involves employees, students, visitors, guests, and contractors. For example, for all employees, they'll be completing a health screening survey prior to entering any of our buildings each day. There's a COVID health station that will be set up at each office to support the screening process. Employees will not report to work if their temperature is above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. All students will have their temperatures verified by their parents or guardians in their home prior to coming to school. If the student's temperature is below 100 degrees, and they do not show signs of COVID-19, they will be permitted to either board the bus, or if they're riding with their parents or guardians, enter the school. If their temperature is above 100 degrees, the parent should keep them home from school. It is essential to the well-being of the community that students who are sick remain at home. All visitors, guests, or contractors will be required to complete a temperature check and health screening questionnaire similar to the one completed by the employees of Peru Central School District. They will not be permitted to enter the building if their temperature is above 100 degrees and they successfully complete the COVID-19 questionnaire. In other words, they will only be permitted to enter the building if their temperature is below 100 degrees Fahrenheit and they successfully complete the COVID-19 questionnaire. I want to expand a little bit on the parent-guardian temperature checks. I think that's come into focus a bit. It is essential that parents and guardians performing these daily temperature checks and screening will be a vital component of the Peru Central School District's COVID-19 risk strategy. The school reopening guidelines issued by the New York State Department of Education states that screening by parents and guardians prior to school is preferred in lieu of temperature checks and symptom screening being performed after arrival to the school. Screening of students, including a daily temperature check and periodic completion of a screening questionnaire. Parents' involvement is vital to the well-being of our community. Students who are sick must stay home. There has never been a greater threat to the health of the community than there is now by sending a sick student to school.
So our parents are taking their temperatures at home. However, once children are at the school, there will be some, monitoring of temperatures that will happen at school, as we'll just do some kind of quick testing in a randomized fashion. And also, I think parents will be responsible occasionally to fill out that COVID screener on their students, a schedule about when we will be responsible to do that. I think every child will have that filled out on them once a week. A schedule and details on that will follow, but screening is more than just parent going, oh yeah, you're okay. There are follow-up pieces to that. And I think even when we wrote the COVID screener that the parents are gonna have to follow each week, they are going to have to click off on there and attest that they are checking their temperature, the temperature of their child daily, and that it is meeting the requirement every single day. So parents will have to submit that data to the school once a week, is the way I believe that we have it set up right now.
That is correct, either through Parent Square or there will be a paper format as well.
Okay, so we will send some more details about that, but that is going to happen through Parent Square.
Yes.
So parents, you know, you're really submitting data to the district. It'll be electronically through Parent Square saying, I have checked my child's temperature every day and it is below the 100. And they are not exhibiting the symptoms. So I think that helps for people to understand a little bit more about the screening process. And I think more will be coming out on that as we move closer to getting the students back through our doors. Anything else, Mr. Sapp, that you wanted to add at this time?
No.
No, okay, so I'm going on. Dr. Palmer, boy, we've kept you quiet over there for a little while. So how will the district support students having devices and internet access? We know up here, there are some places that are pretty far out and it's been a struggle.
Well, I'm just gonna recap what our colleagues here tonight said as far as supporting students with devices. I was very proud of our administrators in the spring as far as doing the videos and trying to engage parents in that process for that support piece. As we learn more, I mean, you know, one of the things, we are reflective practitioners in education. You always look to see how you can do things different, be more efficient and more effective. And so one of the things that we also have is under the Smart Schools Bond Act, which was $4 billion that the governor had put into an account for school districts for technology, and Peru was granted about $2 million of that. We are in our last phase of Smart Schools Bond Act, and now we, as Ms. Campbell said, our kids are all going to have one-to-one devices from 3rd grade through 12th grade. There'll be iPad carts for Mrs. Rawson's building. And there'll be further literature out there going about for parents that need that. So supporting students with devices, that is critical, that our kids will all have one-to-one devices. Now, the second part is the internet accessibility. We also know in the North Country that we have difficulty because of topography and geography. We are where we are, and we have dead spots and things like that. Some of the things that the district's doing, both for students and staff, we have entered into an agreement for 200 Kajeets, which are basically hotspots for people that have better access. That is a Verizon special that's going on right now that the district has elected to purchase. It's no cost to the families for those if it does work for them. As we also know, we had hotspots with buses in the spring, and we have our own buses now with the bigger Kajeets on those. And we'll still have those rotating throughout the district to provide extra connectivity for our families. Now, we do know that we still have families that do not have connectivity. They don't have internet service. I have been in touch with Assemblyman Billy Jones. I've been talking to Verizon. I've talked to Spectrum. I actually emailed and got a response today from the governor's office. So we're constantly moving forward, trying to get these services for our families. It's a work in progress, and we all know with the bureaucracy. So those families that are going to still have those difficulties, there might be thumb drives that are offered them with the information on it. Still may be some sort of paper packets or textbooks, but we're going to try to make sure we have access when the students are back in the building, that they have access to the internet. The one last thing just to share with you also, with the bandwidth, we have increased from 100 megs to 200 in the last year and a half in transition to make sure that we have appropriate bandwidth for the devices we have on campus.
Perfect, thank you. And I know yesterday or the day before, I saw one of our teachers putting a picture online that internet was coming down her road now for the first time. So I know that places up here are expanding, and I know some special fiber optics just came through the area. So things are getting better and we're working on it. So I'm glad to hear that for our Peru community. I'm gonna go over to Mr. Barry now with some more questions in technology. How will young students be taught to use a Chromebook? And how long should kids be on their devices in a day?
Well, going to the second question first, you could do a quick Google search and see from the, very quickly, the American Academy of Pediatrics, that there's a 2-hour suggestion, a limit out there for younger students and adolescent students. That can certainly, I think opinions will be very varied on that. That's a quick Google search I just did. I think how a family interacts with their health provider and how they set their parameters. It's a tough question of getting the right answer for how long you should or shouldn't be on a screen. And I think opinions are also, weighed into that as well. So as much as that ducks around the answer, I think it's a hard one to really nail down. However, how will young students be taught to use the Chromebook? I think at all levels, no matter, I think we're all dealing with young students, pre-K through 12. We've all talked about embedding lessons at the beginning of the year into the curriculum of how we're going to use our apps and use our technology at our hands to utilize, for our students to utilize to best get their education. Also, we talked about some training before school while we hand out our Chromebooks at each level who are getting them, that there's a level of training before the students even step into the bricks and mortar or are on their own in a remote setting at all levels.
And I would look back at that, kids being on devices, how much time in a day, and I would, say to parents, take some breaks if you can, let them be on for a short period of time and then take a break where you're doing some movement or a different type of activity to help kiddos. If you are finding that their screen time has increased more than what you're comfortable with, definitely, the health and safety of our children is super important to us, and we don't want to put them in a spot where they're feeling like they have a headache or anything. So, we do understand that this is a change in how we're doing things, and now we're putting kids on device for not just gaming and fun stuff and TV watching, but now for some of their education, and it is a concern. So next I'm going to say, how will working parents be able to both work and help students with online learning?
Students, working parents, we have Wednesdays, is that remote day, cleaning day, or whatever we want to label it as, the C day. And the availability of teachers on those days, the professional development that we had talked about, the different, we all had alluded to how we do it in each building and putting out videos or having live Google Meets and those sorts of things to support our parents who may be struggling with the online piece.
And I think you've talked a little bit about that. We're planning to get Chromebooks out to students prior to the start of school, but there will be more information to follow on that.
Correct.
And
the security feature question came in last night.
okay.
What
yes.
security features are in place? It was kind of one of the last questions that we weren't able to get to. What security features are in place in the Chromebooks? And they use a program called Lightspeed, and it complies with all of the parameters on having Chromebooks in a school and handing them to kids, and it monitors and is able to see what is going on in the computers, and it also has a lot of our computers, everything they do are web-based, so they're very secure, and if there's anything I'm missing, Mr. Duquette, please jump in, but okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit about students that aren't feeling well in the day, or maybe faculty members. You got up in the morning and you felt like you were okay to come to school, and then for some reason as the day progresses, we're noticing some symptoms or some signs. At that point, if that were to happen, we're going to call on our school nurses. Our school medical services provider, Lori Emer, has helped develop a little screening tool that our nurses are going to use. Students or faculty may go to their school nurse. There will be an isolated room for COVID symptomatic individuals, so that we're keeping them away from everyone, so that they can then be assessed by a nurse, and we can call parents to pick them up and do that as safely as possible. Now, once back in that classroom, we're going to have to look at cleaning that classroom that the student was in, and possibly some notification and how we're gonna do that. Details on how that all is gonna happen are still being worked out in the process, and we'll do that in conjunction with the health department. As we know, sometimes people have a little sniffle and it's an allergy, and sometimes, it could be something more, we hope not, but this situation is gonna come up. We don't wanna end up sending kids home because we know they're allergic to something, but we wanna make the best decisions as possible. So we would err on the side of caution in that. We will be making those decisions, like I said, in conjunction with the nurse, who's a certified registered nurse, Lori Emer, our medical services provider, and recommendation from the health department. So that's kind of our plan in that area. The general nurse concerns, like if your child gets medicine at school or if they need to use an inhaler at school, that's in a different area. So that's an area where they're not going to be exposed to people that have symptoms. So they still will be able to have that function. They'll still be able to get their medication and their inhaler at the nurse safely. I'm just looking ahead, and I guess Mr. Sapp is going to talk a little bit. We've had some questions about the cleaning products, procedures, et cetera. If he wants to give a little bit of an overview on that, please.
Sure. The district has clearly outlined the disinfection protocols, and these are outlined in our reopening plan. And specifically, they can be found on page 18 and the related appendices. The district also has 3 methods of dispensing disinfectants and cleaners. We do this by liquid, by aerosol, and by fogging. When the buildings are open to staff and students, we use liquid products and disinfectants, and we deploy them. When the buildings are unoccupied in the evenings, we'll be using foggers and deploying them throughout the buildings. Aerosol products, such as Lysol and similar products, will be used on a very limited basis. With regards to specific disinfecting products that require, specifically, the district has specifically selected disinfecting products that require no personal protective equipment while they're being used. There are no known health effects, ill health effects from breathing any of the products that we are using. However, for those who have concerns, safety data sheets will be made available. Additional product literature can be provided upon request. The district has a policy in place to address when a student becomes ill. And these, as you had mentioned, are outlined within our reopening plan. We also found on page 18. The hand sanitizer that the district has purchased, all of the products are FDA approved. Students will have the opportunity periodically throughout the day, as has already been covered, to wash their hands with soap and water. The district we've already spoken about this evening, they'll have the opportunity, students will have the opportunity to fill their bottles and drinking cups from dedicated bottle filling stations. And the bathrooms will be disinfected once every evening and once midday throughout the school year.
So we did have some questions. The YMCA has been running a child care program before school and after care here at Peru. Do we have any update about whether or not that might continue this year?
We are currently speaking with the YMCA and know that parents have taken their opportunity for before and after school childcare. So information will come, but you can reach out to the YMCA. As I said, we are in discussion with them to provide YMCA.
And last spring, the governor charged us with
Oliver?
delivering meals, in case you didn't hear that, to students and families. We know how important it is to keep our children healthy and well fed. Dr. Palmer, what's that gonna look like in the fall? if we have students that are in school some days and at home some days, how are we doing that?
We are still waiting on guidance on that. We have an application in for a particular lunch program, and if that comes through on Wednesdays, the district will provide meals. We'll take meals to homes. So those students will have an opportunity to eat. Right now, it is a different plan than what you're talking about in March when the emergency plan that the governor put out that we were going to feed every child. So more information will come out. We're still waiting on information coming from the government.
So when children are in school, they're going to be able to act in school bricks and mortar. They're going to be able to access breakfast and lunch. And then
On Wednesdays,
remote Wednesdays, we're going to do some form of food delivery. But it can't look like what it was in the spring because we didn't have any students in the building. So we were then able to
it will look
send
different that way,
buses.
yes.
So it's going to be a little different, but.
So if
we're
you have
working
8
on it.
kids, they would eat in the building on Mondays and Tuesdays. They would receive meals. Those that qualify at this time, because there's still gonna be some guidelines for this. It's not the same as it was in the spring. Whatever the guidelines set forth, we'll make sure the parents are aware of that. Those that qualify or can purchase at this time would be fed those meals on Wednesday for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. For our students that are coming in on Thursday and Friday, they would receive their meals on Wednesday. I know this sounds a little crazy, for Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday. So the careful planning with our nutritionists to make sure that this is compliance, but that is the plan to be in place so that our kids are still being served.
So we'll still have meals for students. It's just going to look a little bit different. So we'll look for some more guidance and updates on that as information comes in. Thank you. So that, brought us through the list of questions that we had that people submitted to us in the last 24 hours. I know as we've had the live chat, more questions are coming in. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Mr. Barry at this time.
So a lot of the questions in the live chat have been addressed. However, some haven't. For example, snow days or emergency days. How will that work if we are put into a position where we have to have what we traditionally call a snow day on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday?
That is gonna look different, and that's still under, we still have to work through the process with our teachers union and have further conversations on what that looks like.
Another question that I don't think we addressed it, or if we did, it came up again, is how will kindergarten students on the Wednesday be doing their curricular work? Is that virtual? Is that paper?
So teachers will provide the instruction so that parents will not be expected to teach something new, but they will be expected to help support their children as you would support them with any other thing that they're learning new. And so those materials will be sent home with the children, and the teachers will be providing lessons for the children to upload those things electronically to the teacher.
The next question has to do with cleaning, and it is, how will we clean on the shortened weeks when we don't have when we condense, if we have a Monday off and we condense to the 4-day week?
Right.
What's our cleaning plan?
So we have a couple different things that are going to help with that. I've been talking with our director of facilities, Mr. Lefebvre, and one of the things that's going to help a lot is that our classrooms are going to have a lot less stuff in them to make cleaning a lot faster and a lot easier and more accessible. So that way they can get around it really to the walls and the horizontal surfaces here. We do have the foggers that they can go around with that do the disinfection on those kind of, I was kind of referring them as tight clean weeks, because our cleaning crew, we're gonna have to make sure that our teachers are out of here by a certain time, yet to be determined, so that way the cleaning staff can go through and thoroughly do their job. And it might be a little bit different for them that night, the way that their priorities are set, but they still will be able to do the cleaning. It's just gonna look a little bit different. Any, Dr. Palmer or Mr. Sapp, did you want to add to that?
No, you said it very well. Well, there'll be some adaptations if we have sickness or what have you with just a normal piece with the cleaning, but priorities will be making sure that we disinfect our rooms. So we even have additional, besides the foggers, we have additional sprayers that will provide opportunities for our staff also.
I think one of the questions that Mr. Sapp addressed, but is continuing to come up in the chat, is about parents taking the temperatures. Why aren't we screening? How do we verify parents are taking temperatures?
So I think I talked about that for a minute. When they parent, so once a week, parents are going to have to submit through Parent Square the COVID screening, similar to what the employees are doing at this time. When they are submitting it, they are going to, there's a question that says, you know, I verify I have taken my child's temperature every day before school, and their temperature was less than 100 degrees. And they're verifying that for us. And then they're submitting that data. So that's kind of our check on that. It would be a once a week check as well to follow. We have a variety of the thermometers that, you know, you can kind of point it at someone's forehead and take their temperature. And those will be used around the buildings, kind of randomly, so that we're checking people at different points. Mr. Sapp, did you want to add anything to
I mean,
that?
in addition to that, we'll be having some training on, you know, identifying symptoms and observation. We'll have half the student body, so, you know, those who are in contact with students will be monitoring them and looking very clearly and closely for COVID symptoms and so forth. So, you know, all of those protocols in addition will be in place.
And checking for understanding, Mr. Sapp, from what I heard, this is the preferred method under the guidance that we've been given.
That is correct.
Thank you. Remote only students, what's that look like? We got that one. We got the Chromebook handouts. And we talked about when student schedules will be out there and information. And I think one of the questions that continues to come up in the chat right now is, what if a student is in 100% remote and wants to join the hybrid situation?
So when they can, they're permitted to do that. We just ask parents, when you're making that consideration to switch whatever model you've chosen, that you're cognizant that the back and forth is not good for the children. So just be sure that when we're moving the children, you're committed to that, because flip-flopping back and forth is just not good for kids.
I'd echo that in the high school, and we're in high school, middle school. I think we're going to ask parents that they can give it a good 10 weeks at a time to give us time to prepare for the situations that it may bring up when we do switch.
Yeah, and I just want to add too that especially if you're going either way, if you're going hybrid to remote or remote to hybrid, you have to contact us and tell us that.
Yes.
You know, I'm somewhat concerned that some parents might just start keeping their child home and not really say that, and we're wondering where the child went. So please make sure you reach out if you decide to make a change and let us know that, and especially definitely for hybrid, so we can make sure transportation is set up and make sure we've got a space in the classroom for them and we get that all ready.
Right, and it does impact those things, so that some planning has to happen.
I think a lot of questions have come up about the special circumstances accommodation. I believe that was addressed, that we're going to do the best that we can with the situations that parents bring to us, that they need to be on this particular day, working with the work schedule. We're going to do the best we can. I don't think we can make 100% promises with that. However, each building's going to do the best that we can.
Yeah, I would definitely say when you get your group, if you know you feel like something wasn't met, don't hesitate to reach out and say, you know, I'd asked for this, because we'll explain if we couldn't do it. We're all working really hard. We've got notes with every student, specifically what day they want to be on. We're really trying to make that work. So we'll do our best, but it is tough when you're trying to place this many kids and figure this all out in a very short period of time.
Bus flexibility. I know we addressed it. However, a question is, if I have a walker and they walk home on nice days, but it rains, can my walker go on the bus?
We need to make sure that that child has a assigned bus, so that seat is already claimed for that child. The one thing that we're not accepting this year is bus notes because of cohort tracing. That is such an important thing. And so if that child is going to be a flip-flop from nice day and inclement weather day, we need to make sure that child has a bus.
This is the way I think of it is, if there's any chance your child needs to take transportation on the day, say yes, you'll be using transportation. We'll assign them a space. If you're gonna pick them up, you're gonna drop them off, or they're a walker in that situation, then we can easily, they just won't be on their bus that day. What becomes difficult is someone we've never planned for being on the bus, trying to find a spot on a bus. So if there's even a slight chance, and I do believe our transportation supervisor said they really are gonna plan for everybody taking the bus, even if they may not be.
I think that's an important point to make. Again, transportation is prepared to take every student home.
Absolutely.
CB Tech question, that one goes to me. Again, the CB Tech schedule, the first year CB Tech students and the Allied Engineering Program, Allied Health Program will go to CB Tech Live on Monday and Tuesday. They will become Peru remote students on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They are going to be in Cohort B for Peru. Again, they go to CB Tech on Monday and Tuesday. They're going to be in Cohort B in Peru, in which they're expected to log into the classes that they have scheduled during that day. If they are a second year CB Tech student, they will be in person at CB Tech on Thursday and Friday, and they'll be a Cohort A person at Peru, in which they will attend their live classes on the A days at Peru. CB Tech hours will be from 9 to 2:30 this year.
Mr. Gray, I think you may have misspoke there, it's late. It's not the Allied Health, it's the New Visions group.
Excuse me. New Visions, yes, it is, yeah.
New Visions Engineering and New Visions.
We need to reverse that and be very clear, because that's important. New Visions Engineering, engineering program, and the New Visions Health program, they are on Mondays.
Mr. Berry, can I interject, please? I think at this time, we're gonna end this session tonight. If you have specific questions, such as what just happened at CB Tech, please feel free to email your building principal. If you have a district-wide question, myself, Mr. Saff, or Mrs. Rabideau, if it's a general concern. Just two friendly reminders to share with everybody. If you go onto our website, I sent out a letter to you on August 11th that outlines the hybrid plan 2. And it's so critical because I keep hearing language, and what we're doing is we're getting confused between remote learning and a hybrid 2 model. And what I want to bring it to full circle on is you'll see the bulleted items on what it looks like as far as the hybrid model 2. The other piece that we had to put in place as of tomorrow, which you'll see in ours also, and please don't get it confused, is an addendum that the governor required us to do on remote learning plan, testing of students and staff, and contact tracing. These are 3 components that we had to elaborate more on that was in our general plan. We will transfer that information also, because as I said earlier, our reopening plan is constantly evolving and will change as we learn more. Remote learning plan that you see in there is not going to be reflective of the hybrid model 2. The remote learning plan that you'll see in this addendum is for complete remote learning when the building shuts down and all students are out of school. The testing of students and staff, it elaborates more on what the testing is. As the governor had shared with people that they said the district was going to test. That is not an accurate statement. The actual statement is we will screen students. Testing comes from the hospital or on a recommendation of your family physician. And then the contact tracing is the third very important part, and the district has made great efforts to make sure that we have a real sense of where our students and staff are. So if there was any type of situation, we can work collectively with the health department and allow them to do the contact tracing that they need to do. So if there's any additional questions, feel free to contact any of our administrators here. We thank you for coming out tonight, and we have another session on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.